want some sandwiches?
Everybody likes cold cuts, even vegans, right? So let's make a vegan cold cut. This is seitan. So if you have a gluten sensitivity, you probably want to skip this one. So I wrote out a recipe and everything.
True confession time as we create this recipe, and I read out the ingredients, and these ingredients and their amounts will be listed in the description below for your convenience. But first of all, we're going to start with 1.5 cups of VWG, which is vital wheat gluten, which is why if you have a gluten sensitivity, this recipe is not for you.
What's the true confession?
My true confession is I am not 100% sold on seitan, particularly the commercially bought version. But when Brian first constructed this faux lunch meat recipe, I was like, hello, this is so much better than store-bought. That's my true confession.
Awesome. Next.
A 4th cup of nutritional yeast.
I refuse to call it by the name that other people say.
I do as well. 1 tablespoon of garlic powder. And 1 tablespoon of onion powder. A teaspoon of mushroom powder. I love mushroom powder. I love mushrooms, but I love mushroom powder because it gives a great umami to any dish you add it to. 1 teaspoon of paprika. Ours happens to be fancy.
It really says fancy paprika.
Someday I want to do the research on the different types of paprikas.
It's called marketing.
Yeah, for real. It's like, what is the difference? Anyway, 1 teaspoon beetroot powder. This gives your meat a reddish hue.
It also adds a little bit of an earthy undertone to the flavor. I've noticed when I don't use it, it doesn't taste quite the same.
1 teaspoon black pepper. 1 teaspoon salt. Now, this is an optional ingredient, so if you have a strong aversion to salt, or if you have a medical reason why you don't want salt, but if you do any research whatsoever into any lunch meat of any type, regardless of its origin, there's a lot of salt in there.
Yeah, 1 teaspoon of salt for this entire log is really not that big of a deal. It makes a fairly sizable amount, so you're not really using a lot in each bite, but when I've made it without it, it didn't taste right.
1 tablespoon steak seasoning.
This is the McCormick Montreal steak seasoning. It's actually just a bunch of different seasonings and herbs, but when you smell it, it has like a kind of a steaky, beefy smell. It just works really, really well in this. A little spicy, but not too much.
1 teaspoon sesame oil. Now, this is one of my favorite oils as far as flavor goes. A little bit of sesame oil goes a long way.
Yeah, it's a seasoning, not really a cooking oil. So that's why we use it in this. It adds an extra bit of umami and richness to this that is really hard to get otherwise.
1 tablespoon white vinegar. This is white wine vinegar.
Yeah, because I don't like white distilled vinegar for anything other than cleaning and pickles.
So lots of our recipes that we handwrite, Brian just writes white vinegar, but that always means it's white wine vinegar.
Or red wine vinegar, if I say red.
1 tablespoon soy sauce. This is our low sodium soy sauce. I'll put a link to that in the ingredients.
Yeah, we've not found it in a store. We actually got this one from Amazon, and it's extraordinarily low sodium compared to anything else we found in any store. So definitely worth looking into. Now, if you don't use a low sodium soy sauce, you can probably leave out the salt because that's the difference there.
Correct. A 1/2 teaspoon of liquid smoke.
This is optional technically, though it does add a lot of flavor to this dish.
I would highly suggest using it if you can.
Much of it actually cooks out, so you don't notice as much of the smoke as just the kind of nice backbone that the smoky flavor leaves. It makes it feel like this was a smoked meat product.
Yep.
Is the easiest way to describe it.
And 3/4 cup water.
Right, now, I actually did this recipe several times, so that's why the amounts are exact. A lot of the time you'll see me just use certain amounts of water until it gets there. This, you don't have to worry about that. Use the exact amounts, you're fine. We use Anthony's Vital Wheat Gluten, by the way. And no, I didn't mix anything up beforehand because I mix it now. There's almost really no reason to. You're gonna need this anyway. And I just mix it up real good. You can smell it already. By the way, if you're curious about the vinegar, that is a common ingredient when you're using Vital Wheat Gluten. There's a kind of a weird flavor that I detect it, but it doesn't really bother me so much anymore. A lot of people are very off-put by it, and that's why they'll use the wash the flour method for seitan. But vinegar seems to offset that. Now, I also used vinegar because it adds a little bit of a brightness and a sharpness to the meat, which if it's gonna be like a roast beef, ham kind of thing, corned beefish thing, it tends to have a little bit of bite to it.
Yeah,
so.
this works really well in a lunch meat substitute.
Oh yeah, that's what this is intended to do. Eat it cold.
It also, in my opinion, would be a perfect replica for Euro meat.
Sort of. I don't know. It's a little too roast beefy for me.
Yeah,
to be
I think
Euro
with
meat.
some flavor differences, but the texture and the way it comes across, it reads Euro meat to me. So I think that recipe will be coming to you soon. I'm gonna push that.
At a certain point, I will scrape out the bowl and just dump everything out. You can see I got pretty much all of it out. There's still a little bit of dry areas on the seitan itself, and that's normal. Just want to get as much as I can. And then just knead it like you would a bread.
You don't need these items
Nope,
anymore.
I do not need those items anymore. And you can see that it's becoming moister as I go. The seitan gluten strands are already starting to come together. So it's forming a really nice dough. I don't like to over knead this one. I just want to get all the pieces into it, essentially. And the thing about not mixing, you notice it's varied. It looks different as you get into it. I like that. I don't want it to be one homogeneous mass. I know I usually make a homogeneous mass, but this time I don't want it to be homogeneous. I want it to be non-homogeneous.
Making it non-homogeneous actually makes it more aesthetically pleasing.
Yep. The flavors are all still in there. It still comes out the same, from what I can tell. Okay, once you start seeing the strands form and you can kind of do this with it and it forms a sheet like that, you're done. So now we need to wrap this up for the cooking phase. Let me get some tinfoil. Be right back. Okay, if you don't want to use tinfoil, you can totally wrap this in parchment first and then put it into tinfoil. Some people don't like their food touching tinfoil. For this case, I'm not bothered by it, but you do want to use a piece large enough that you can make your log have some space on both sides, and you want to be able to roll it up at least 2 or 3 times. Also, be careful with the tinfoil. Don't puncture it, because any puncture can lead to a blowout. It just, explodes out. And as I get it rolled over once, I just want to pull back, kind of like sushi or that butter, compound butter thing. And what it does is it makes it nice and round, and then I roll that up. Find the ends, pinch down a little bit, and give that a twist.
So this container is creating a surface for when you cook it. You don't want it to explode beyond that encapsulation, and
Like a
that's
mold.
why it's important to keep it intact.
And then I'm gonna put this in an Instant Pot, but you can just use like a water bath and steam it. In the Instant Pot, you need to steam it, you need to cook it on pressure for about an hour. Now you see what I did with those? I made little legs. Let me show you. When I put it in the Instant Pot, the legs can sometimes hold it up. So I don't even need a little steamer basket in there, and I do that, but they fall over too. So yeah, it doesn't always work, but it's worth a try. Actually, yeah, it does work if you put water in it. So what you wanna do is put about 2 cups of water into your Instant Pot. Like I said, put that on pressure cook for 1 hour. At the end of 1 hour, we'll show you what it looks like. But if you are going to steam it, you steam it for about 2 hours if you're steaming, because it's a little bit different process. Anyway, let me get this started and we'll show you the finished product in just a moment. And through the magic of television, look at that, it's already half eaten. Now this is actually a piece that we made the other day, and as you can see, we ate like 2/3 of it already. But I wanted to show you guys what this looks like, and you can see how firm it is. It's kind of like a pepperoni or a salami in firmness. It's actually pretty amazing. Let me cut off a little slice here.
That firmness makes it really easy to slice thin, which is perfect for the sandwich application.
Yep, I probably could have gone even thinner, but look at that. You can almost see through it. And here, see, it tears beautifully, just like a salami or pepperoni or something like that. The flavor is kind of a cross between a turkey and roast beef.
Kind of reminds me of the peppered.
There's a couple of deli meats out there that are like a peppered beef.
Yeah.
And this is very, very similar. So let me explain how we got to this exact stage. Once it comes out of the Instant Pot or out of the steam bath, you remove the foil, put it into a container, put it in the fridge overnight. Ideally. Can you eat it right away? Of course you can. I prefer to let it sit overnight. It turns this really firm texture. That's what really builds the texture. How long does it last? I don't know, we've had this one for 4 or 5 days, but we've kept it as long as, I think, 2 weeks.
I think so.
You know, it's not the kind of thing that spoils super fast, but you definitely don't want to leave it for too long because it is just, you know, it's got stuff in it.
Not only can you use this in sandwiches, you can use this sliced on salads.
Pizza.
You can do paninis if you want to be a little extra fancy. It's very versatile.
Yeah, you can actually cut this up into chunks and throw it into like a tofu scramble or something like that.
You've even
Really
used
works
this in a stew.
Yeah, I used it in a stew too because it's so firm, even softened up a little bit, like seitan tends to do in a stew. It works really, really, really well. So make this cold cuts, sandwiches. Who doesn't like sandwiches? As always, guys, thank you so much for watching and have a great day.
Bye-bye.